About 20,000 years ago, someone in Africa took a baboon's leg bone and carved a series of precise notches into it, rows of them. We found it, it still exists. And archaeologists have argued for decades about what it means, because it might just be the oldest math homework on Earth. Somebody 20 millennia ago was keeping count of something. The question is what, and how they learned to do it at all. Because here is a question that sounds simple and absolutely is not. Did ancient humans count? And your gut says, obviously, yes, of course. Counting is basic, counting is easy. A child can do it. But that gut reaction is hiding one of the most surprising stories about the human mind. There is because counting, real counting, the kind you do without even thinking, is not natural. It is not an instinct. It is not something your species was simply born knowing how to do. Here is the thing nobody tells you about counting. It is a technology, an invention as real and as constructed as fire or the wheel or writing. It had to be discovered, it had to be built piece by piece over thousands of years, and it had to be taught painstakingly to every single generation that came after, including you. You don't remember learning it, but you did. Someone drilled it into you when you were small. And by the end of this video, I want you to see the counting you take for granted as what it really is. One of the most powerful pieces of mental technology our species ever invented. So let's start with what your brain does for free before any teaching, because you were not born with nothing. You were born with two number tools, and they're both ancient, and they're both running in you right now. The first one is genuinely amazing. Look at 1 dot. You know it is 1. Instantly, no counting. 2, instantly. 3 dots, 3, instantly, no effort. This instant, effortless knowing of small quantities has a name. Scientists call it subitizing, and it is lightning fast. You don't count 1, 2, 3. You just see threeness in a single glance. It is automatic, it is older than language. And here is the wild part, it is not even unique to us. Crows can do it. Fish can do it. Bees can do it. This little quantity sense is deep, ancient hardware shared across huge stretches of the animal kingdom. But it has a hard, embarrassing limit, and you can feel the limit yourself. 1, 2, 3, still easy. 4, just barely, but 5, 6, 7 scattered dots. You can't just see it anymore. The instant knowing collapses. Suddenly you have to actually count one at a time, or group them, or estimate. That wall, right around 3 or 4, is real. It is built into your brain, and every human being on Earth slams into it. You're free. Built-in number sense runs out almost immediately. And I want you to really feel how small that is, because it is almost insulting when you think about it. 3, that is the ceiling on what you can just know without effort. A crow can do 3. A bee can do 3. The most sophisticated brain that has ever existed on this planet, the thing that landed on the moon and wrote symphonies, comes factory installed with a number sense that gives up right after it counts your own nose, your 2 eyes, and stops. Everything beyond that, every number that actually runs your life, your age, your bank balance, the year, the time, every single one lives past the wall, past the edge of what you were born able to grasp. Sit with that for a second because it tells you something staggering is coming. Everything important about number had to be built on the far side of a wall you hit at 4. So that is tool 1, and it is precise but tiny. Now here is tool 2, and it is the opposite. Look at a small handful of stones and a huge pile of stones. You instantly know the pile is more. You don't know the exact numbers, but you can compare rough amounts, 10 versus 50, a little versus a lot. This is your approximate number sense. It is fuzzy, but it has no upper limit. It is the part of you that knows a crowd is bigger than a family without counting a single head. So step back and look at what our ancestors were working with. 2 ancient instincts, one that says exactly 1, 2, 3, and then quits. And one that says roughly more or roughly less, but never anything precise. And here is the enormous gaping hole between them. Nothing in your free equipment can tell you the difference between 17 and 18. Nothing born into you knows exactly 12. That precise exact counting of large amounts, the thing we call counting, lives in neither tool. It had to be invented to bridge the gap. And bridging that gap may be one of the quiet masterpieces of the human story. So how did they do it? How do you get from a brain that quits at 4 to a person carving careful groups of notches into a bone? And this is where those bones come roaring back, because they're the evidence of the bridge being built. Let's talk about them properly. The one I open with, the roughly 20,000-year-old one, is often called the Ishongo bone, found near the border of the Democratic Republic of Congo. It is marked with deliberate groups of notches, and people have argued endlessly about whether the groupings show arithmetic or a calendar or something else. But even older, from a cave in southern Africa, there is the Lobombo bone, a piece of baboon fibula with around 29 clear notches cut into it, and it may be something like 40,000 years old or more, 29 notches cut on purpose kept. Now, we may never know exactly what any individual was counting, but that is almost not the point. The point is the technique itself, and the technique its genius in its simplicity. It is called tallying one notch, one thing, one scratch, one animal, or one day, or one anything. You have taken a quantity that your brain cannot hold, and you have parked it outside your head, in the bone, one mark at a time. You don't need a word for 29. You don't need to understand 29 as an abstract idea. You just need to match one notch to one thing, over and over. This is called one-to-one correspondence, and it is the seed of all counting everywhere. Think about how powerful that move is. The bone remembers for you. Your brain, which quits at 4, is suddenly able to track a herd, a store of food, the days until the river floods, by offloading the number onto an object that doesn't forget. This is the first great counting technology, and it is thousands upon thousands of years old, and you still use it. When you scratch 4 lines and slash a fifth through them to count votes or drinks or days, you are using the exact same invention as the person who carved that bone. You reached across 40,000 years and used their tool, probably this week. And notice what a strange and profound trick this really is, because it is the same trick underneath almost everything clever humans do. The person carving that bone had figured out something that no other animal ever has. They realized that a problem inside the head, a number too big to hold, could be solved by moving it outside the head into the world. The bone becomes an extension of memory, a part of your mind that lives on the outside, that doesn't get tired, doesn't forget, doesn't quit at 4. That single idea, storing thought in objects, is the seed of the tally, and the seed of writing, and eventually the seed of every book, every hard drive, every note you've ever left yourself on your phone. It all starts here, with someone deciding that a scratch in a bone could hold a thought their own brain couldn't. That is not primitive. That is one of the most sophisticated moves our species has ever made. But tallying has a problem, and solving that problem is the next leap. A bone with 50 notches is still hard to deal with. You can't tell 52 from 53 at a glance. So humans did something clever. They started grouping. And where do you think they looked for a natural way to group down? At their own hands. Let me throw something at you that might sound wild, but is hiding in plain sight on the ends of your arms. The reason almost every human counting system on Earth is built around 10, or sometimes 5 or 20, is not a cosmic law of mathematics. It is your fingers. You have 10 of them. They are the original counting device, portable, always with you and perfectly suited to matching one finger to one thing. When our ancestors needed to group their tallies, the hand was right there, preloaded, the first calculator our species ever owned. That is why you count in tens, not because 10 is magic, because you're a primate with 10 fingers, and every time you use the number system taught in every school on the planet, you are unknowingly paying tribute to a pair of ancient hands held up around a fire. And here is the proof hiding in your own language. Think about the word digit. It means a number. It also means a finger. That is not a coincidence, and it is not a pun. It is a fossil buried right there in the words you use every day. A little linguistic memory of the fact that fingers and numbers were once the same thing. Or think about counting systems built on 20, like the ones behind certain old European number words, where 20 is a natural unit. Where does 20 is a natural unit? Where does 20 come from? Fingers and toes. Or number systems are, quite literally, shaped like our bodies. We didn't reach for 10 because the universe prefers it. We reached for 10 because that is what was hanging off our wrists. The math that governs the modern world still carries the exact shape of a Stone Age hand, and some cultures went so much further than fingers. Anthropologists have documented body counting systems, particularly in parts of New Guinea, where people count by pointing to a whole sequence of body parts in a fixed order: fingers, then wrist, elbow, shoulder, ear, eye, nose, and back down the other side, so that a number isn't an abstract symbol at all. It is a place on your body. 15 might literally be left eye. The number lived in the flesh. It is a stunning reminder that our tidy digits are just one solution among many to the same ancient problem. Now here is where it gets truly strange, and where we meet the strongest evidence that counting is invented, not inborn, because there are human languages spoken by living people today that have almost no number words at all. The most famous example is the Pira people of the Amazon. According to researchers who have lived among them, their language has words for something like one, or really a small amount, and a larger amount, and many, and that is essentially it. No word for 7, no word for 20. And crucially, in experiments, papyrus speakers had great difficulty exactly matching large sets of objects, precisely the task that requires counting words to pull off. Now, I have to be careful and fair here, because this is genuinely debated among linguists and it is a sensitive, much-argued topic, but the core finding points at something profound. Without the words, the precise concepts are extraordinarily hard to hold. It suggests that number words aren't just labels we stick onto ideas we already have. The words may be part of the machinery itself, the tool that lets the mind grip an exact large quantity in the first place. Language didn't just describe counting. Language may be what made exact counting possible. And if that is true, it flips something you probably assume. You likely think the number 7 exists out there in the world, and we simply gave it a name. But maybe it is closer to the other way around. Maybe for a human mind, the word is the handle that lets you pick the idea up at all. Without a word for it, exactly 7 is like a slippery thing with nothing to grab, there in the world, sure, but impossible for the mind to hold steady and use. The Pyra, if the researchers are right, live in a world with just as many objects as ours, but without the linguistic handles to seize exact large amounts and do anything with them. It is a genuinely mind-bending possibility. That some of the numbers you think of as the most solid, obvious facts in existence might only be graspable because someone long ago invented a word to grab them with. And that leads to the wildest evidence of all, and it is not from an ancient dig, it is from a nursery, because developmental psychologists have watched how young children learn numbers, and it is not the quick download you'd expect if counting were natural. A small child can recite 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a little song long before they understand it. For months, they're just parroting sounds. Then slowly, painfully, one number at a time. It clicks first. They truly get what 1 means. Weeks later, 2. It can take a young child something like a year and a half to fully crack the logic of how counting actually works, that each number is exactly 1 more than the last, and that the last word you say is a total. A year and a half for a mind soaking up language at astonishing speed. That is not the fingerprint of an instinct. That is the fingerprint of a genuinely difficult invention being installed effortfully into a brain that did not come with it. So here is the picture. We are all, every one of us, born like those anumeric ancestors, born with subitizing, born with the fuzzy more or less sense, and born with no exact counting at all. And every one of us had to have the technology installed through years of teaching using tools, our fingers, our tally marks, and above all our number words that our ancestors spent tens of thousands of years inventing. You didn't discover counting. You inherited it. Now we have to talk about the turn this story takes, because this invention did not stay innocent. Here is the uncomfortable part. The moment humans could count precisely and record those counts, something new became possible. And it wasn't just calendars and clever bone tools. It was accounting. And accounting is power. Consider this. In ancient Mesopotamia, some of the very earliest writing we have ever found is not poetry, not prayer, not epic stories. It is receipts, lists of grain, counts of livestock, records of who owed what to whom. The first thing humans did with the full power of precise recorded number was to track goods and debts and taxes. Think about what precise counting unlocks. You cannot tax some grain. You cannot demand a debt of a lot of sheep, but you can tax exactly 30 measures, and you can record that a person owes exactly 12, and you can come back next year and check. Precise counting is the tool that makes property, debt, tax, and large-scale control possible. The same technology that let a forager track the days let a state track its subjects. The humble tally, the innocent notch on a bone, is the direct ancestor of the ledger, the census, and the bill. This gentle invention grew up to run empires and to weigh on the backs of everyone counted by them. And there is a beautiful, slightly haunting piece of evidence for exactly how this happened. Long before that Mesopotamian writing, archaeologists find small clay tokens, little shaped pieces, all across the ancient Near East. Going back thousands of years, different shapes seem to have stood for different goods. One token, one measure of grain. Another token, one animal. Their token, one animal. Their tokens you can carry, sort, and store. And here is the twist that gives me chills. Many researchers believe that when people started sealing these tokens inside clay envelopes to keep records safe, they began pressing the tokens into the soft clay surface first to mark what was sealed inside. And those pressed marks, those little impressions standing for quantities of things, may be among the direct ancestors of written numbers and of writing itself. Read that again. Writing, one of the 2 or 3 most important inventions in human history, may have been born not from a poet wanting to sing, but from an accountant wanting to count. We may have learned to write, in part, because we first needed to keep the books. Number came first. The word followed the number. So, did ancient humans count? And here is the honest answer. The one this channel always owes you. Yes, and it is more astonishing than a simple yes, they counted, but we cannot pin down the first count, and we never will. That bone I opened with its careful groups of notches, is not the beginning of counting. It is already a masterpiece. It shows planning, grouping, one-to-one correspondence, a whole sophisticated system. Whoever made it was standing on top of a mountain of earlier, simpler counting that left no trace tallies scratched in dirt. Pebbles moved from pile to pile, fingers raised and lowered around 100,000 ancient fires. The invention of counting wasn't a moment. It was a slow, collective, tens of thousands of years act of genius by people whose names are utterly lost. Because that is the part I want to leave you with. You think of counting as one of the simplest things you know. It is the opposite. It is one of the most remarkable inventions your species ever produced, and you are the heir to all of it. Every time you count change or check a clock or note how many days until something you're waiting for, you are running a technology forged over tens of thousands of years out of two flimsy animal instincts, a pair of hands, a scratched bone, and eventually words. The person who carved that bone couldn't have counted to 1,000,000, but they took the first steps of a journey that leads directly to every number in your life. They parked a quantity outside their skull in a piece of bone so it wouldn't be forgotten. And here we are, tens of thousands of years later, still counting, still refusing to let the numbers slip away. They didn't just count. They invented counting and then handed it down, notch by notch, word by word, all the way to you. So here is my question for you. Now that you know your brain quits at around 4 on its own, does the fact that you can count at all feel a little more miraculous? I'm genuinely curious how that lands. Let me know in the comments. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.